I'm Jason Sylvia, and this is the Creative Capital Show. A show about creative people and how those creative people turn into entrepreneurs by taking their creativity and turning it into a business and facing all the trials and tribulations along the way. Street fashion, food puns, mom and pop restaurants, vintage clothing, collaborations with beer companies, comic books, toys, and collectibles. These things may not fit together for everyone, but for Longston, they all work together in perfect harmony in a world he created with this brand, Bad Taste. Bad Taste has become a fixture in Providence, Rhode Island. It would be considered a successful business by any standard, but that success did not come overnight. It took Longston's first brand failing and 10 years of hard work and forging relationships to make Bad Taste what it is today. Longston learned a lot in those 10 years when it comes to creativity, business savvy, and networking, which he gets to share with you, the listener. Enjoy. You started a brand that I remember. This is how I initially met you. I think it was called Little Bastard Co., if I remember correctly.
Oh, yes.
How did that brand start? Like, what was the genesis of that?
That was let me see, it was 2021, 2007, 2008. What is that, like 13 years ago?
Yeah, it was about 13, 14 years ago.
13, 14 years ago that we were like in the early 20s. At that point I had quit community college and I started designing in my bedroom, and then I met a friend who was at that time working at like a Little Generals that screen printed some clothes, and then from high school, and then he printed like 12 t-shirts for me, and it sold to all my friends. I told my friends to buy it, and then I was working some other job, and then I just put all my money into that, and then I got together with like 3 friends and we opened like a small store and shit.
When you say put money, like how much was that investment as far as like opening up that store? Where was the store located?
The store was in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Between us 4, I think it was only, to be real with you, less than like $3,000. And it gained a lot of traction, but like we were going to the trade shows in LA, like the Agenda. I met the buyers of Zoomies. I met like the creative director from Inc. magazine, which is like big now.
Oh, nice.
But they weren't even that big when we met them. And then like we got emails from like ASAP Worldwide and like a bunch of random magazines in LA. But like I was in control of everything and I didn't really know how to handle that. So that shit like eventually folded. But there was a lot of other shit that happened between the falling out of a couple partners and a bunch of weird things that eventually it would just naturally folded.
I mean, are you willing to go into that? You don't have to, but I feel like there's probably an interesting story there.
What is the interesting story to that? No, we opened the store. We were making okay money, and then we were part of Karmaloop, and we were selling through Karmaloop, Casbah, but then they folded because of their.
I remember when Karmaloop folded. That was like a huge like.
Yeah, they owned like millions of dollars, and one of them was us. They owned like Vans and other companies, mad money. They only owed us like few G's, and it was no way of us getting it. So that for a small biz that sucked. And then my other business partner who does other businesses ventured off into some other things. Essentially, there's way too much people involved, and this is like during 2008, 2010. Where Instagram wasn't as poppin', so we had to rely on just reaching out to random stores, and it wasn't doing enough to sustain, to keep it going, because we wanted to make Woonsocket poppin', but like our logo legit had a kid with a gun, and this like the city itself was not down to help promote that, and they were just trying to take us down. And a lot of other. So I was like in mid-20s, just like stressed out with life, and I was like, fuck this. And it was a bad timing because I was going through some personal shit. shut down the store and went back and lived with my mom's crib for a little bit.
So I got a question. You said there was 3 other people, but you were running everything yourself. Was that because the 3 other people weren't pulling their weight, or like what? I guess what were the 3 other people supposed to be doing, or was it just they put up money and they were like, long run it, we just want to return on the investment or something?
No, I think it was legit just a bunch of young 20-year-olds not really knowing how to handle biz, whether they were successful or not. So I'm not blaming them or anything, but I'm like, I still had to lead everything because it was my designs and ideas, but I also didn't know what the fuck to do. So luckily those guys had their own jobs, and then they bounced, and then I stuck with it to the very end until all the money was dry, and then I eventually was left with like negative balance in the bank, and then I eventually just closed the first store and bounced and went back to a regular job for a few years.
So when you were doing this, that was so it seems like for them they had like other source of income, but for you, was that your only source of income at the time when you were running the store?
Yeah, it was my only source of income, and looking back, I wish I would have hustled harder, took more advantages of the opportunities, but being like 23, 24 and shit, it's like, and then you were making like a couple $100 a week doing what you do, it was pretty good, but it could have been better, so whatever.
Would you say that the climate at the time, like the climate of the culture at the time, may have been a contributing factor? Because you're saying Karma Loop, right? Like, I feel like in those years, that was when, I'm doing air quotes here for anybody that can't see me, because it's a podcast, so you can't, but quote unquote streetwear, I feel like had like a heyday or like a golden moment where it seemed like every other day there was a new brand coming out. Every other day there was like a brand was getting a collab that I never heard of.
Yeah, 2006 was the year that the streetwear was booming, but we were, because it sucks, it took me forever to get it off the ground. So by 2009, 2010, it was kind of dying that new brands weren't even looked at. But I did have some people that was trying to help us out. Like there was a rep from Zoomies and stuff. They said that we were gonna have opportunity. That never went through. I didn't reply back to ASAP Worldwide, who was up and coming, but this is like talking about before the videos, so like no one really knew locally of who ASAP Rocky, ASAP Yams was, and even I didn't. I had to Google them, and then there wasn't much on, but they were like, "Yo, my name is ASAP Yam from, like, would you like to get down in the clothes?" And I was like, "How the fuck do I do this? How do I send it to this?" So I didn't know, so all these mistakes, and let alone, keep in mind, this is like a kid, me, and a few other homies from Woonsocket, Rhode Island, that was not streetwear central. We were not from Boston or New York or LA that had connects. We were like, how the fuck do you deal with this? And I was happy with a couple $100 from local people supporting. But if there was a better opportunity or a better guide to look to, the internet was not as poppin' as it was today.
So you were saying that you were trying to put, and just want to make sure I'm correct here, you were trying to put Woonsocket on the map. Was that the mission from the get-go with the brand, or was that just kind of something that, we happen to be from Woonsocket, so let's put our hometown on?
Not the map, but I was very comfortable. It's a very like small town mind back in the early 20s, where you're like, Woonsocket's cool and people love us. Where, we were the shit over there, but it means nothing to the rest of the world of streetwear. And then I guess it fast forwards till a few years ago when I eventually opened up the online store and moved to Providence, where it flourished a little bit more.
I think I want to jump ahead to that in a bit, but there was a couple of things that you had stated earlier that I want to dive a little deeper into. One being, you had the logo. The logo had the kid with the gun on it. The city of Woonsocket was not fans of that. Was it tough to have the business in Woonsocket just from were there any barriers from like the city or the state of things you had to deal with besides just Woonsocket being like, we don't like a logo with the kid with a gun on it? Any barriers in that sense, even with the space you had?
If you're a new business, like Woonsocket does not really have. So in order to make it in Woonsocket, you would already have to be there for like generations. Like there's only like 3 places that have survived. Think about it. Starbucks didn't even survive, and Starbucks is $1 billion biz, and
I didn't know Starbucks didn't survive in
Dude,
Woodstock.
Starbucks was there for like a good 3 months and they bounced. And they were like,
Jesus.
fuck this. There's only like, there's a K's, that's like an OG restaurant that serves nothing but like 5 sandwiches. They make millions. There's another one called Beef Barn. All they serve is beef sandwiches. Mr. Chan's Chinese restaurant.
I was gonna say Mr. Chan's is the only thing I know from
Yo,
Woodstock.
Chan's has the most terrible Chinese food I've ever had in my life. But the guy is cool because he has a freaking Fu Manchu mustache that goes like freaking what's his face, like Salvador Dali, and he.
I heard they do a lot of live music in there too. Because
the reason why they're alive is the liquor and the nightlife. The rest,
gotcha.
But to be a new business, there isn't much for you to go on. But we tried, right? Because we were like super ambitious and shit, and I was like super ambitious, and then and then it's discouraging because you're doing mad shit, and it's not getting to the level you want, and then a lot of people don't see your vision, so you're like fuck. But you needed a lot of people to get involved. But no, like looking back, like legit, I felt like shit when the store closed down because I lost like a lot of money, and I haven't seen I think at that time I didn't see my parents for a while because I was doing my own thing. And then I called my pops. I was like, yo, I was like borderline crying. I was like, yo, could you help me? The store bombed and I need to come back home. And my pops is super cool. He's like, yeah, you could always come back home. So he rented like a U-Haul truck and helped me pack all my stuff. And now like it was in his garage for like a few years. So I ended up just getting a regular job after that. But it was heartbreaking. But looking back, everything, that shit was like a big lesson so that I won't do that certain stuff ever again.
What were the things that you just didn't know, or the things that you wish you had advice on when you started that? Was it more on the design and like the creation of things side, or was it more just on like, this is what a tech pack is, this is like how to finance your business, this is how you do the taxes for your business, this is how to make an LLC, like? Or was it just a mix of those of everything that?
No, the design was the easiest part. That was natural to me. I just knew.
Because you were already doing that?
Yeah, I was it's like being a musician. You kind of just like know how to do it naturally. The ideas and shit. But the business side, from budgeting to how to, talk business to people, how to get into stores, how to keep the vendors happy, how to do your taxes, how to do everything else besides creatively was something I myself or my friends didn't know what to do, and that ultimately one of the major factors of not being successful. But that's true, like most businesses have like a creative side and a business dude, like there's dudes who are just into business and financial, and then the other person is just into creatively, and
they just do the books and that's it, or they do the books in such a way that the creative person can do all the crazy creative stuff, and then the business guy has to figure out how they can do it and make money.
Yeah, that's mainly the reason. Is it's hard to be both. It's hard to be super creative and also super into the business side, because like where'd that come from? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
The creative side is natural. It's your left brain or whatever brain it is, left side it is. But the business side is like, man, like fucking, like you just open the bank account and they don't really tell you what to do, and fucking
it's like good luck.
You're just winging it. I've been winging the fuck out of shit for like ever. I was like, we're lucky we got to that far.
Question on that too, because there's still a couple of things I want to hit on as far as like the early days, but I've noticed even with the success you have now, it's still, to my knowledge, just you. Is there a reason for that? Is there a reason why you didn't take on like a partner that could just, hey, listen, you handle the business stuff and make sure like we're not losing money, I just want to go create things? Is there a reason why you've kept it to solely you, even with and we'll talk about this later, like your newer business ventures?
Yeah, mainly because one, I've noticed that even if you are so passionate about your stuff and you bring in people who like want to get down, they're never going to be 100% as passionate into what you're into, just because it's natural, because that's their thing. They could sell you, oh, I'm going to get down, whatever. And two, I wanted to do it on my own because I want to either succeed or fail on my own. Like I would feel terrible if I brought in somebody and I completely bombed and because if I fail, it's cool. Like I've gone weeks in the beginning stages where like it's not doing good, but like I don't have much responsibility. All I got to do is just tone down my going out to eat or whatever and just limiting my budget. But if I had someone else to rely to, it caused me way too much stress. But now within the past year, I do. We could talk about it later. I do have my buddy who helps me out, business wise, but he's 100% understanding because before he got involved with some money and time, I was like, yo, it's not gonna be booming until we get to a certain point, and he's super cool with that because he has a legit career as a microbiologist. But as far as like starting by myself, yeah, I wanted to just do it on my own because I feel like I had enough experience where like I could do it, and also mainly I wanted to just have all the responsibility on me.
So you're saying that you're when you need the help, your dad was down to help you. Have your parents just throughout your life been super supportive of any of the creative stuff you want to do? Because you said you were designing for a while. Has it always been the case, like the parents from the get-go and your family have been supportive, or did that take a while?
Huh. Yeah, being a traditional Asian family, they wanted me to go to college and do the degree with doctors and stuff, but I tried that. My dad paid for like the first semester at community college. It was only like, a few, like 2 Gs or whatever, but it was a lot for him. And I tried, and then I realized that's not my thing, and I dropped out, and it was just very depressing. Not the fact that I couldn't learn. I'm like, I know, like throughout the school, I was like smart as fuck. Like I was like, on the math team and all this shit. But eventually as I got older, like I knew that I could not sit still and learn from lectures and people talking. It wasn't like I felt anxiety every time I went to class. And then I kept on doing it, and then they were like, "What are you doing?" and stuff. The more you keep on doing stuff for Asian parents, and they realize that this is what you're gonna do, they became supportive in the later years. As I and then they became more supportive, and then they'll help me out when I need to. Like in the beginning stages, my pops would come to the store and check it out, and help me install the fixtures and put up the railings and
oh, that's pretty awesome. So he was down to like
come to the events, come to the events. And now as I got older, they're just down and hope it supports me by myself. They don't really want anything out of it. They're just hoping that it sustains, it helps me. So as I got older, yeah, they've been pretty supportive, even though I've kind of pushed them to the side and not tell them exactly what I do or whatever. But as I got older, I learned to appreciate that their support means a lot.
So now they know exactly what you do, or do they still not?
No, they come to the store. They know, and they talk to their friends that I do the store and a bunch of different creative stuff. And I fill them in every now and then. So,
did you always know from a young age? Because you're saying like, hey, I tried doing like the serious school college thing. Did you just know from like a young age that, yeah, I'm not gonna do the normal path, or was that more of an evolution where as you were getting older and going through life, you just realized, like the normal thing isn't for me?
I don't know. It's a little bit of both. Cause since like middle school and high school, I would just keep creating, drawing, whatever on wherever I can. I'm talking about like from clothes. I was drawing on clothes and hats and stuff, and people were like, yo, it's dope. And then like I would zone out and draw on my arm and stuff. The teacher would like, pay attention and stuff. And then I was on the gift of arts class, and they were like, you could be bigger if you just focus and stuff. You have so much potential. And first of all, I was like talking to the teachers. I'm like, I don't know what you mean, lady. But now I appreciate as I get older when every art teacher has said you have so much potential. Now I know what they mean because I have no idea what the fuck that meant when I was younger. And now I'm like, oh shit, this lady was right. I could probably do whatever it is I want to do. But back then I was like, yo man, what's going on? But I've always wanted to do it because I legit would be such a. I wasn't necessarily like a loner. I was like a loner in school, but I still like knew everybody. Everybody like appreciated like an artsy kid. They wouldn't really chill with them that much, but they wouldn't really hate on them. So like when I got my license in like high school, I would drive to New York. I mean, not New York. Yeah, I drove to New York too. Fuck it. I drove there a few times, but I would drove to mostly Boston on a weekend, and I would just check out like the streets that had like these street artists, and I was like, it's kind of cool.
Was that like more of a permanent thing, like the being the loner, or did at some point did you have like a crew of people around you? Because you had those 3 other guys who had the initial little bastard with you. Was it like loner for a while, or did you have like a tight knit like support system?
The people, the homies that I started stuff with, I'm still good friends with today. Best friends. We're on like a group chat and stuff. But they understood why it bombed, and everybody's super cool with it. And the crew is like this. Like they know that what I'm into, and they're down to support and get down. And they know when I do my own thing. I still do it to this day. I'll drive hours to like a particular art event or convention, and I'll go by myself because they know that it's not their thing 100% anyways. So I still had like a great support system and the homies in high school, but I also had my solitude. And but that was like, just growing up. Like I've always had my own solitude. I grew up with like as an immigrant kid with like a pen and a paper in his bedroom for like since I came here. It's like I'm like the only child, so I just know how to be by myself and do what I want to do.
I understand that you were designing pretty much, or drawing, painting, doing some type of art since you were a little kid, right? And I'm looking at some of the badass paintings where, by the way, this is, instead of in my apartment, I'm actually doing my first remote podcast. So we're in Long's place. We're at Long's home, and I'm looking at some of the paintings on the walls. What informed your design aesthetic? Like, what were the influences that you were like, hey, I'm going to paint in this style, or I'm going to draw things in this style? Was it like music you listened to? Was it any sports you were into? Was it just things that you saw? Like, what informed how you painted and how you did your art?
Like any artist, it's like evolved throughout the years. Like it evolved from that art class in middle school to high school. That shit was dark as fuck back then, because as a high school kid, most kids are like depressed and listen to the fucking first of all, I was like in high school and middle school when like grunge was popping, so that shit was depressing as fuck. So most of that stuff I influenced my stuff, and being alone, you would create universe. So I think that's why throughout my life with creating, people have said multiple times like, yo, you're in your own universe or whatever. But that's because I was so in my own world that I did create my own, like, shit. So like, there's on one side, there's the lonely side of being the only child, being the only person into art aside from your friends, like deeply. So you just search stuff on your own. And then the flip side, the cool part of being alone is nobody else influences you except for the stuff that you look up yourself. So like all the stuff around you, from like the days of music and MTV to like I randomly roamed. I legit in middle school and high school got dropped off while kids were playing outside. I asked my mom to drop me off at the local library, and I would spend hours there. It would be like from fucking 3:30 to like 8, and I would just roam those books, and eventually I just found like dope shit, And then as a young artist or creator, you just copy a lot of old people's art, like from Salvador Dali to Michelangelo to Picasso and stuff, and street art, and then you eventually just find what you like, and then it influences your current style. And as it got older, it becomes a little more refined, it gets less cartoony, it becomes a little bit more personal reflection, and everything now is super thought out and stuff. Like you could tell, back in the days when like 10 years ago, it was designed like guns and girls. And
I was gonna say, what informed that's actually a good segue. Like, what informed the design aesthetic of Little Bastard Cokes? It seemed like kind of reminded me a little bit of like a Neighborhood-esque, in the sense that it was like, at least the lookbooks, what I would see is like biker culture a little bit, girls, guns, things like that.
Like there's a dude, the homie, who was one of the buyers at Carmel. He was like, "Yo, I love the brand because it reminds me of like fiber ops and shit." And that was like a Japanese brand that had like the neighborhood look. Back in 2006, whatever, or 2008, like all those brands are like very relevant. There's one I like black and white because I thought that was badass. I like bike culture, that's badass. And I met my friend who screen printed out of his basement, and he was like, "Yo, if you limit your colors to just one, you could save so much money." So like budgeting, that saved us because we were doing black and white ink. But mainly it was dark. It was like zombie movies influence. It was biker influence. It was James Dean influence. It was like violence, girls, guns. It was very what was ever popping when you were in your early 20s in the mid 2000s street, where everybody had guns, from the hundreds to Crooks and Castles to Diamond Supply. So we were like, yeah, man, let's have some guns and girls. What the fuck? So that was whatever was hot. Because you're influenced by that time. In that time, everything was loud.
Talking to suppliers. Talking to buyers. Knowing how much materials cost. Knowing how much your time costs. Heck, knowing your costs in general. And keeping track of that with budgeting. And keeping track of your inventory. I know all these things don't sound very sexy when it comes to creative work, but knowing the basics of business is an important lesson you must learn in order to be successful. And unfortunately, with Longston's first brand, Little Bastard Co., Longston learned that lesson the hard way. He admitted that not knowing the basics of business was one of the main factors in why Little Bastard Co. failed. So learn from his mistakes and learn the basics of business. And if that's not your thing, find somebody you know and trust who it is their thing. It will save you so much time and headaches in the long run, and possibly save you from complete and utter failure. All those things informed your design aesthetic, and you were going with what was popular at the time for your first brand, your first outing, which was Little Bastard Co., right? What informed bad taste? Because I noticed, at least at first, and this is just from an outsider's point of view, and it still is to an extent, at least to me, but full on, I remember when the brand first came out, it was a lot of like food puns and like kind of flipping the idea of food and streetwear and music. And I did notice that there was like a lot of like food blogs at the time. Did that inform that, or like what made you want to choose like, yeah, I'm going to do something, I'm going to flip the idea of food and put that into streetwear?
Yeah, I was like, because I was into like food blogging, and I was like, yo, I kept making these puns and the pizza and ODB KFC, like, and I was like, yo, I made like designs based off of food, and the first collection was all just food parodies and became its own brand. And the name came from just, I wanted like a food-based name, but not so like literally food, And then my buddy and I was sitting around, and he mentioned there was like a Peter Jackson movie called Bad Taste. And I was like, yeah, that's good. Peter Jackson movie Bad Taste is actually some crazy Muppets that do some fucked up shit. It's a pretty fucked up movie.
Well, there we go. Now we got the movie recommendation.
Yeah, there's Muppets and they have guns and sex and shit.
What the hell? That just sounds like Crank Yankers, the movie.
It's Crank Yankers, but like bizarre. It's like Peter Jackson's first movie.
You did this, food-related brand. It's still going today, but from the get-go, was the idea just to have this food, like pun-related brand, or did you always have in your mind? Because now I've noticed that there's been an evolution in it, right? Like you have the store, and the store is not just the Bad Taste stuff, but there's other things going on. You have like collectibles, you have vintage clothing, you have customized clothing, and even the Bad Taste stuff, it seems to go more in a Providence and local direction rather than a food direction. Was that the idea from the get-go, or was that just more of an evolution?
No, that's just adapting to what was happening. Kind of like, Jeff Bezos, he started Amazon with just books, and then evolved to whatever it is, had a few bumps. So I know that me selling these shirts was going to be very niche. And I was like, damn, okay, I'm making some okay money, but like at that time, the it was weird because I started when I lost my job at I was working at a company, head of the shipping and stuff, making decent money, health benefits. Then I got fired because I was in charge of another employee's mishap. Um, which whatever. I didn't cause it, but like being in charge of someone else's mishap is. So when you get fired, you could actually collect. When you get quit, you cannot. So they were still giving me a couple $100 a week, and I was doing bad taste. But then I also started like accumulating all these thrift and vintage clothes in my garage. So at that time, because I'm already hustling, I would invite people to come to my dad's garage where I was still living at his house to buy like my clothes, bad taste, and like the vintage. So the vintage is very broad. Like you don't have to like branded bad taste clothing or food puns. You could just like random vintage clothes. So they came over every week. I would make a couple $100, and then I heard about the Providence Flea, which was I think Upstarting by Maria. I applied for that, and then I sold the bad taste stuff, and it would make like a few $100, not nothing crazy, like maybe $200, but the rent was like 70, and I was like, yeah, that's right. It's not. Then the next week, I just started to put my vintage clothing there, and it was booming, and it was so I would still make like $100 off the bad taste stuff, and then I was making like $400 off of the vintage. So to keep what I was my passion of the bad taste branded clothes, I kept thrifting and getting vintage clothes. So I adapted, and it was eventually, so I made a bunch of more, because we were like one of the first persons to do it for men's vintage streetwear clothing at the Providence.
I was gonna say, yeah, that a lot of the vintage stores I would go to, it was women centric or like heavily women's clothing. It wasn't that many choices for guys in general, let alone like streetwear and all that.
Yeah, business was booming the first year. The first year, I legit was there with every Sunday and just pulling in like a minimum of $500 in sales every Sunday for like 6 hours. Like one week, it was like Brown's moving in day, and it was like $900. People were lining up to go to my booth, buying my shit, vintage shit. It was nuts. It was like, yo, this is insane, because like I'm not technically working, and this is what I'm doing to make some money. People are buying some bad taste stuff, but they're digging the vintage stuff. So let's do more vintage, and then we could still do the bad taste, do like small runs. So it was this evolution of like how to stay alive and how to make money, and there's only I love my shit, but like I'm smart enough to know that I gotta sell some other shit to make some money.
Because of the experience you had, right, with Little Bastard Co., was it just losing your job that made you want to get back and like, hey, I'm gonna do this again, or what was the event or the things that you're like, I want to give it another one, I want to give it another shot?
It was legit waking up at like 5 a.m. for like somebody else, whether I was getting paid good or not, which I was. Like I had enough experience where like I really could have gotten like any job I wanted, to be real with you, and making like $500, $1,000 a week, getting the benefits and stuff. But it was just the anxiety of working for somebody else, waking up at 5. Like I just don't like that at all.
What was that other job, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
I was in the shipping department for Tiffany and Company. It was a cool company at the time. So like I was the guy that like last shipped and touched the like Super Bowl trophy before I went off to the Super Bowl. So I met the young kids who, well, in the 30s, that made and sculpted the Super Bowl trophy. And they were silversmith, and they went to school for art. There's like 3 or 4 of them, and they were like, yo, and I got to know them. They're like, yo, man, you're super cool. Like, if you want, we could train you to be a silversmith so you can make some of this stuff with us. And I was like, man, that's cool. Imagine me just sculpting all these trophies and stuff. But then I realized that it was going to be so time consuming. You had to spend like hundreds of hours to get certified to even. And I was like, yo, it's cool, man, but like I don't really. I would still be trapped and not creating my own shit. You know what I'm saying? And the money was going to be good, and the money is good because of all the job security. But it was just still I mean, eventually I was gonna quit or get fired anyways, because I was legit on the internet and just looking up different things for me to do, and because I was still designing, so I was looking up things and trying to do my own business and use it. So it was like it was inevitable. I was there for like over a year, and there was a few incidents that made me pissed off that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. One of them is I don't get too deep, but my good friend, he was 21 years old, and he like died while I was working, and I didn't hear it till after, because you can't use your phone. And then I went, and then I turned on my phone, and I was like, yo, I got all these texts, and I was like, yo, your boy Simon passed away, and I got pissed, and I was like, what? He's like, you're lying. And then I realized he was like, like passed away a few hours ago, and no one could like reach me because of the security through the phones and shit.
Oh, holy shit.
And then the same thing happened a month later. My grandma was dying in the hospital, but my family members, we got this, just go to work. And I went to work, and they called me while I was working that she passed. And like all that shit is just, added up, and I was like pissed. I was like, I can't work this, but I don't like the fact that I can't do what I want to do. And last year, my good friend's dad, my uncle, was about to pass away, and I just took the whole week off from because I do my own shit, because my own store. So I took the week off and just chilled at his house, and that's what I wanted to do. Like, and that's why I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it gives you that freedom to take an L for a week, lose some money, which I don't care about. But if you work for somebody else, you can't do any of that shit. So I was like, fuck working for everybody else. The anxiety of not creating your own thing, the having to listen to somebody, and the freedom to do certain things that you will regret, or be with people who you love on your own time, added up to me just bouncing.
What did you learn, I should say? What did you learn from the experience of having the first brand that now you're starting the second brand that you were able to apply? Because you're saying with the first, with Little Bastard, right? You didn't know a number of things, and that was a contributing factor as to why that business didn't go maybe the way that it should have.
Yeah.
And so what did you learn from that? And also, was there any other bits of information that you picked up that you were able to apply to Bad Taste and what you have now? And what do you feel like you learned that was able to make this business sustaining and successful, this current brand you got now?
There's a bunch. Like one is like budgeting. When I was like younger, I was being reckless because I thought money would keep coming in, and you realize as you get older, it's very hard to obtain. From small thing of just budgeting and ordering certain things you need or don't need. There's some stuff that you don't need, stuff you can do on your own. There's people who you trust. That's also a big thing. You can't always think you're the shit, because when we were like doing our own thing like 10 years ago, everybody thought we were cool, and but when shit hits the fan, everybody bounces. So I don't want to like get too high on my own t-shirts or whatever designs that people love. But as far as like logistic goes, it's just budgeting and knowing what to order and what not to do. Like, you don't have to do everything that somebody reaches out to you, and be selective, but also take advantage of like the real opportunities, because that person that reached out could probably go to somewhere else. So learning to take opportunities, better business relations, being more assertive, and just hustling harder, because that shit could just end whenever. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you're like good and young, you're like, oh, it's just dope. But then you're older, you're like, oh man, everything could just blow over any second now.
Was there things that you were able to learn as far as like from the business and administrative side, like was setting up, like doing the initial paperwork to set up the business, maybe like setting up an LLC, like was that a bit easier this time around? And was or is Providence, Rhode Island a better market than Woonsocket, Rhode Island to set up the business?
Yeah, absolutely. Even though it's just 30 minutes away, Providence is the creative capital of the state.
Hence the name of the show.
Yeah, all the administrative is easy, because now like there's so many like small business like steps to, like, if you go to the city hall and you want to open, like, they'll help you out. Like.
Is that what you did?
Well, we just knew from people, and yeah, we went to City Hall. We wanted to like do the business license stuff. They told us to go this place, that place. Looked up a few things online. Went to the bank, and they did the LLC for us. So there's people. Let me turn this off. But there's people that are just like paid to do certain things, and it made it easier for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like taxes to paperwork. All you gotta do is ask someone from your bank financial person that opens up your bank account, and everything is much more easier. They did all the LLC for us.
So when you say they, you mean the bank? What bank did you go to?
Citizens.
Oh, okay. So if somebody wanted to kind of do what you do, like the first thing they should maybe go to a bank and get a business account and have them take care of like the more tricky paperwork, I guess.
Yeah, those people want your business. Like they want whatever commission they get is like, yo, I want to open this business account. They're like, oh, cool. And
so it's like right this way, sir.
Yeah, but I'm like, yo, I don't know how to do any of this stuff, man. You got to do it for us. And they'll, ours, I'm not sure if everybody's like that, but our person, Katie, who helped us out, super cool. She did right then and there, and she emails us and keeps in touch with us, make sure everything's all set. So that was pretty dope. And being from Providence, there's other business owners that eventually find out about you and get to know you. And what I love about the city is all you gotta do is ask them, and they'll let you know what to do, what not to do. Example would be like the homies from Troop Restaurant. I ask them about a lot of stuff, and then I ask the homies from Brass Monkey and Black Sheep. I've designed some shirts for them, and they're very open to send me whatever information, help me out, whatever I want. I couldn't really get that in Woonsocket because there wasn't much like-minded businesses. Over here, everybody's just super down.
Would you say that's the climate of Providence? I've noticed, at least with the food and beverage businesses, like the food and drink businesses, yeah, there's competition and there's a lot of it, but everybody's pretty supportive. Would you say that's like Providence overall? Because I've noticed talking to even some people on this podcast, like there's some business and business sectors where everybody's supportive of each other, but then I'll hear when it comes to like music and entertainment, there's a reason why like nobody breaks out from the state. So it seems like certain businesses, and I like your opinion on this, certain businesses or certain types of businesses, everybody's very supportive, where there's others where it can get like cliquey almost. I don't know what your experience has been like. Because your experience, it seems it's been pretty positive. Like everybody's been pretty helpful.
Yeah, but that's because like I don't know. I guess it depends on who you are. I think in any business, you're gonna have people who are just like super cliquey in their own or seclusive, and then there's gonna be people just down. Personally, I'm just down for whatever, man. But if you need my help, and if I can, then I would try my best. But if I can't, then I'm gonna let you know. But that's not because I don't want to. Just sometimes I can't. I gotta do my own shit first. But so far, everybody, like, there's been definitely people that just like not down or open, and that's so cool, man. That's their own thing. But the majority of the time, I'll ask anybody, and if they can help me out a certain way. And most of the time they're down. But then sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I can't right now. Maybe a little later," and stuff like that. People, I don't know, like a lot of people use excuses of other people not helping them out. At the end of the day, you still gotta be like doing your own shit. Like you gotta make sure your shit is like dope or good. You can't just be like asking for a ton of help for people to get you somewhere. And networking isn't like, yo, let me see what the next guy could do for me. Networking is like just keeping it real and connecting, and wants to get down on your vision and if they can help you out. But like no one should be discouraged if somebody can't help them out. It's like that's a weird mindset.
So when you say networking, because I want to touch upon this, because you do have those relationships with the people at Black Sheep and Troop, with Troop being directly next door to you, and Brass Monkey. How did you go about forging those relationships? Because I think that's something important that, and not to criticize the generation coming up, but like the thing I'll hear on other podcasts or just other business people or other creatives is that like, hey, the new generation doesn't know how to network in person or how to build those relationships. So how did you go about that? Like what is the advice you would give as far as relationship building? Because you seem to be pretty damn good at it.
Yo, people, I'm not saying I'm my own personal, but there's this woman, her name is Kyla Coburn. She designs like Troop and The Grange and East End, right? She's like the ultimate artist designer that I look up to.
So when you say designs, like she does their logos or does like all their interiors?
No, their interiors. They give
gotcha.
her lots of money, and she builds the whole restaurant for them. She says, and this is like a few years ago, and I was just like, getting to know and chilling, and she was like mad real, and this is like the best compliment I ever got in my life. And she was like, "Yo, Longston, you're so authentic. You know, you walk it, you talk it, you look it. Everybody loves working with you because you're just real, keeping it." And I never thought about that because my whole life I just been myself, right? And like for the first part of your whole life, people think because you're so yourself that you're weird, doing your own thing, and then. But everything has been I've been wearing t-shirt and jeans my whole life, and people eventually now caught on, and wearing t-shirt and jeans is cool, and ripped shit and shoes. But what I'm getting to about networking is I think a lot of people network the wrong way in a sense where they, and I thought about this before you even mentioned it, because I thought about like, wow, people are terrible at this. And maybe it's young people, but in general, old or young, I think some people go networking to network. Like they go to meet somebody or in a relation to try to get something from them. Where I think I am good at it because I don't do it for anything but just to get to know people. And I don't even network. I just go and chill, and then people who are like-minded connect, right? There's some people that don't see my vision and we don't connect, and that's cool, man. But I think the reason some people are good networkers is because, like an example, I know Sean from Troop, because I just genuinely drank Revival, and I was like, yo, this is dope beer. And he was like, oh, man, you should come by the brewery, the old one. I was like, oh, shit, it's dope. And then I was like, connect. And then Sean, I think, introduced me to Oscar, who owns Black Sheep and Brass Monkey. And he came to my booth at the Providence RI. He was like, yo, I love your design. If you want to design something, I'll give you some money. I was like, yeah, man, I'm down, whatever. And then, Oscar has Laotian, half Laotian children, and I'm Laotian, and we talk about food. And wherever I go to art galleries or whatever, or local events, everything has been just chill. It became natural. So I think, to really answer the question, is I think people who don't know how to network correctly is because they go into networking seeking what they can get from somebody else rather than seeing what they could do for somebody else, or not try to get anything from anybody, but just forge better relationships. And I think I didn't know it till recently when people said that I am likable or person, but at the end of the day, I legit was super authentic in myself. And there's probably some people out there that's like, oh man, I don't really want to mess with this guy, and maybe that's why I haven't worked with them. But for the most part, I like people who are authentic in themselves, and I think they like that back. And you can just tell when people are just not down or seem like they come off as. And there's definitely some people that I have met that want something from me, and it just feels weird.
Yeah. Well, what's funny? It's that's how I feel like that's how we met and we became friends, is me just coming to your store and just being like, I like this stuff that you're doing, and just constantly showing up to your store.
And then we were talk about similarly and nerd out. And I've actually nerd out with the mad people. And some people would just go over their heads and be like, yeah, this guy's talking ridiculousness. I don't know any of this stuff. And I was like, damn. But then some people were down, like, oh, this is cool. And then, yeah, man, things are, it's the same thing as being friends with somebody. It's just being natural. You can't force friendship or business relationships.
So it's show up, be authentic, and focus on what you can give rather than what you can get.
Yeah, a lot of people go and try to, get something out of it, as it's a crazy business thing. When you go on a first date and you're automatically thinking, oh, I need to make this person my wife or husband or something, where you could just probably go and have a good time and not expect anything. Right. People just not expect anything, to be real with you.
So speaking of these, letting the relationships and thing be natural and authentic, do you still, and correct me if I'm wrong, do you still do social media marketing for other brands and businesses besides your own? Or do I have that incorrect?
I used to. I do less of it. A lot of the people that I worked with was a lot of old school mindset. They still didn't think that the stuff I was providing, to answer the question correctly and bluntly, I felt like I was being undervalued, underpaid for what I was doing.
And also, it can't be easy of unless it's a natural relationship, kind of promoting and doing things for somebody else when you're not directly involved with that business, because it's somebody else's vision and somebody else's brand DNA.
Yeah,
right?
I legit was doing some really quality stuff, and I wasn't being compensated correctly. And in Providence, you can't really charge too much because everybody thinks they're a social media influencer.
Everybody everywhere, not just Providence, thinks they're a social media influencer now.
Yeah, so
except for me, I'm just like, I'm not that interesting.
A lot of people think they can just post a photo and that becomes like a social media. Social media
is gonna be viral.
So social media is a lot more than just posting a picture. It's engagement and videos and algorithms and how you take certain photos, or just how do you present certain things, and ads and fun and shit like that. To answer the question, like, I was spending too much time at these places, and I realized I was doing the numbers that if I was getting paid this amount of hours to work for somebody else, because I eventually, without what I was doing, even though I liked doing social media, I was still working and getting a check from somebody else, and it was taking time from my own projects, and I cut that off pretty much last year, and I've been mentally happier and financially feeling better because everything comes to me, and I don't have to chase a check or make sure I do work people on time. Everything is on my time, and all the allocated hours are going towards me to build. Like, you know, like, it's cool to build someone else's company, but it's so much better to build your own so that it's a company that you have built and grow, you know, because you get everything. You get all the 100% of the revenue.
Keeping on the topic of relationships, you did I would say, pretty notable collaboration with Narragansett Beer. How did that, can you just walk through like that entire, just how all that happened in that entire process? Because I think you hear a lot about collaborations in the design world, right? And I think there's some mystique as to how these things actually work. So, you know, who reached out to who, what did the design process look like? How much involvement did each party have? Like, just go from inception to all the way to a final product and debuting it. Can you walk us through that?
So it's Providence. Everybody kind of follows each other on Instagram, you know, local businesses. So I think Jamie at the time, she no longer works. I think she works for Proclamation. She's super cool, super sweet woman. She was handling some... So Narragansett's always been pretty open to working with artists. They worked for artists in the past and other businesses.
Didn't like Dr. Seuss do their original like ads or something back in the day? Speaking of artists,
you have no idea, but those people are like old as fuck. They're like 1800s.
You know, it's a beer that's been around for a while.
They like sponsored the first Red Sox team.
Yeah,
and to be honest, I've only started drinking them since like 2000, like 10 years ago. I was like, what the hell is this? And then and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then to be honest, like, I like the can design. I'm a very can design drinker. I really don't care. Now I do, but before I was like, oh, let's go buy some cans.
It's a pretty cool can design, and like
it's very iconic now.
So you knew somebody at Gansett. Did they reach out to you as far as how this whole collaboration went, or did you reach out to them?
I think I posted various things on my Instagram, and I would get reactions from where I was controlling their Instagram account. And then one day I was like, yo, man, let's do something. So like, I just ask if I like something, right? And then they're like, yeah, let's do it. Email us some ideas and stuff. So I'm like, oh, word, that's dope. And then I worked with Zach Deuce, my buddy who... so Zach... if you flash back 10 years, if I was 25, Zach was like 15, and he was a big fan of the LBCO old brand that we did, and he ordered some stuff, and then he said he loved the brand and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's dope. And I've always kept in touch, not even kept in touch, but we have always followed each other. And then I know Zach works and does a lot of cut and sew, and I'm not too familiar with that.
Oh, okay.
So I hit up Zach. I was like, yo, I'm doing this collab, Bad Taste Narragansett. Do you want to get down? We'll both do it, and then we'll both split the profit and stuff. He's like, yeah, because it'll be good for his portfolio. And then because Zach works as a designer for a Zoomies brand called Ethic at that time.
Okay.
So they have like millions of dollars in sales, and they're like, but he uses connects within the industry to do his own shit. So I was like, yo, I'm not gonna just search the internet for cut and sew people. I'm just gonna go to Zach and just break off a piece of the profit for him. And I was like, yo, Zach, I got this opportunity to do some shit for Narragansett. Let's come up with like 5 different things. So we did a cut and sew striped shirt because I think that time 3 years ago, like Guess striped shirts were hot. So we did that.
So striped shirt like a button up or like a rugby?
This is a rugby short
Okay.
sleeve.
Gotcha.
And then we did a rugby long sleeve with a collar. And then we did a jacket. And then we did a couple t-shirts. And then Gansett. And then we did the jacket that was red at the time to go exactly like their beer. All cut and sew. And we're like, and then we sent them, yo, we got all the ideas. We were hoping they'd pick them all up. But, you know, Narragansett's cool. They were budgeting to, they were like, yo, we want to just do the jacket. Let's order like 100 of those. I was like, oh, word, dope. And then, so I sketched it out. Zach did the tech pack. We sent it overseas to a reliable company that does stuff for Zoomies and a bunch of other skateboard brands, like a legit cut and sew company. They sent us back a sample. I didn't like some things. I didn't like the sizing or the fabric. So we switched it up, waited like another month or two, get it back. Everything's to my spec. And I shot some photos for it. I sent like the previews to Gansett. They loved it. We gave them the sample. And then we released it on the Gansett market of November. And like, it was like sold out within like a day or two.
You saying Gansett Market, was that like a kind of like a Narragansett sponsored or run like flea market type of deal?
No, it was like a lot of artisans and beer and clothing. It was like
Gotcha.
like over 100 vendors, but they wanted to launch that shit there, the jacket, and then like everybody loved it, so we sold out. We only sold it for like $80, which is super good price. And then and then it's been on like, and that was like 2 years ago, but it's been, and then we released the black ones this year. I mean later in November, December. We had a mix up because with COVID, I think there might be a new crew overseas, and they fucked up on our silhouette that we used last year, so it didn't fit the sizes, so we had to do a rerun. And now we had to talk, but that's like a small business problem. We're like, yo, fuck, big headache. That's what you deal with.
Relationships. They are key in life and they are key in business. And Longston has spent the last 10 years networking and creating strong relationships in both the business and creative communities in Providence. And those relationships have led to some amazing creative projects. Longston was able to network so well because he followed one simple rule: give more than you get. So remember, when you're networking, trying to forge new business relationships, focus on what you can give and the value you can add to that relationship, rather what's in it for me. And I promise you, if you do that, you will forge strong business relationships that will last a lifetime. Went through the behind the scenes of like a collab and how that works, and I think that's really helpful to everybody. Can we go into more of the behind the scenes of the current business Bad Taste PVD? Because I do have some questions on that. One being, how did you figure out of when the time was right to get your first storefront? Because the storefront you have now is different from the one you had before. But what went into making that decision where it's like, hey, you're making these articles of clothing?
Yeah.
What went into like, I'm ready to do brick and mortar? Because there's so many brands out there that just exist online, and that seems to be the thing to do. What went into you going, you know what, I need a storefront?
That was so the whole 2016, I was straight hustling online, Etsy, the Providence Flea, and the Providence Flea was like legit. You know, I was minimum $500-600.
And just to be clear, and sorry to cut you off before we go into that, Bad Taste is, to my knowledge, direct to consumer, right? Whereas I feel like your previous brand, you were dealing with Karmaloop and stuff like that. Is Bad Taste direct to consumer, and is that how you wanted to keep it that way?
Yeah. It was easier, you know. I think because with the evolution of internet, like I don't know if people was here like 10 years ago, but like a lot of brands are now direct to consumer. It's easier. You control everything. You know, get your profit margins a lot more. Before you needed a lot of other avenues because it was so hard to get to people, but now like with internet, I mean not internet, but like social media and every freaking aspect of it, and a bazillion different ways to sell, from TikTok to Instagram to Snapchat to LinkedIn. You could to Facebook ads. You could make a livelihood just doing direct to consumer on your own with a freaking apartment or small office. But what I wanted to do at that time, I was with somebody. I was with my ex-girlfriend in 2016. All that year, we would hustle at the Providence Flea, make the $600 to $800, save all that because I was still living at my parents' crib. And I'm talking about, if you save like fucking all summer, right? You save like 10 weeks. You get like, we start the store was like start off less than 6 G's, and we found a spot, and I was like, yo, mainly it was all like the local students from J. Wood or Brown that kind of like enticed me, because if they're local and they're buying all this shit and I can make $500 minimum for a Sunday, then it would be logical I could probably make $500 or more a week, but hoping to make $500 a day. So when I opened the store up, well, I just Googled and found out there's a place called the Arcade, which is technically the oldest indoor mall in America. It started in 1892.
Yep, and that's in the heart of downtown Providence.
Yeah, the location was cool. It was surrounded by some colleges. J. Woo's next door, Brown's up the street, RISD's around it. I went in with the girl at the time. Good thing we split right before the grand opening. So I ended up doing everything myself, which is cool in hindsight because everything's under my name, so I could get it going. And so you drop like what, $1,800, and then the inventory I made some more inventory.
When you say drop $1,800, was that to pay for like the first month's rent and like security and stuff like that, or was that just to get the proper setup?
From the fixtures to the first and last month, we probably dropped like 3 G's, and then the rest of the 3 G's was all inventory.
So it's 3 G's inventory, then 3 G's of like, because I think it's important to note the arcade like I think it recently been renovated because it was just sit dormant for years, and then they were trying to get different clientele. Like, I think the upper level was apartments, and then the bottom level was businesses.
We're lucky that the space was kind of already done. It was just green. It was an old art gallery, and the colors on the wall was lime green, and I asked them to repaint it for me, and they did that. So it was legit a 300 square foot space. It was like the size of a closet. So it was like but it was good enough because it was downtown. Next to it, it's like a few restaurants. And
was that the deciding factor in why you chose that space over others in Providence? Was like, hey, it's downtown.
Yeah, there was a
foot
spot,
traffic, all that good stuff.
There was a spot that we thought about in like Cranston, Elmwood area, and I was like, this is a weird spot, even though it was like $800 and bigger. And I was like, I don't know. Then I got to renovate this spot, and I got to bring traffic here.
And then the monthly rent on the downtown Providence spot was what?
It was only $925.
Oh, that's what I pay in rent for my apartment right now.
Yeah, $925. I knew that I could make that in a month, but hope I can make that in a week.
And also, I think it's important to note they were bringing in other businesses, like a new bar, like restaurant opened up, which was Rogue Island. I believe you had New Harvest Coffee Whiskey just opened up in there. You had Cured Collection, which also dealt in like streetwear vintage. Then you had a couple of other vintage clothing dealers. I think there was like a nail spot in there that might still be there. So they were getting all new businesses in there, and you were in on that ground floor, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
correct?
To be real with you, we were like the first one of the vintage, aside from Carmen and Ginger.
Okay, I was trying to remember the name. I think I was like Carmen and something. So it was like, so as far as the vintage people, it was you guys and Carmen and Ginger.
Yeah. And
gotcha.
Then, so the first year, dropped all that, and I was freaking. So we sold. So we got lucky. We kept promoting and stuff, and the first customer was this girl. She came in and she heard about us through Instagram, and she bought like a cool cigarette T-shirt, and I was souped. I took a picture of her, and I was like, your first customer ever. And then the first week, bro, we were I think I was so the first week I legit went into the store at 9 a.m. and didn't leave till like 8 p.m. But the everybody else doesn't open till 11 a.m. and then they close at 6. So I adapted and I was like, oh shit, I guess nothing happens before 11. But I would still be there early, and I was raking in like 12 hours a day for 7 days a week. I was like, yo, I'm gonna be this guy. I'm gonna open 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. It's gonna be lit. The first week I made like $600, and I was like, this is dope. This is hot. If I do a couple more, and I was like burnt out, and then I kept on doing it, and then the first year, and then we did collabos with a pop up with Cure Collection. And then we did like collab with them, and then we did a lot of there's a few other events that happened. So it was because we were like the first one, because we had like sneakers. My friend consigned sneakers, and then people were like, kids were like, yo, you should put Supreme in here. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I don't like Supreme that much, but if kids will buy it, I'll bring it in. So we would buy Supreme, resell it, sneakers, resell it, and then we would gross. Like the first year I grossed fucking $110,000. No, $110,000. No, was that like six? I was growing 6 figures. I was like $100,000 the first year I grossed it by myself, straight killing it. But then the thing is, right, because you gross it and you're like, oh, this looks cool.
That was the combination of online, because you had the online sales and the in-store?
No, I took online off because I wanted the retail.
Oh, okay.
But it sounds cool because $110,000 looks like a lot.
But that's gross.
But honestly, I only netted like 40. So I was living like a very average dude, like a 30. I net like 30 to 40 because I didn't know the numbers. And I overspent and over inventory and shit. And I was like, this is cool. And then, but like I met so much cool people. We were only a store doing it, so like these Rizzy kids were like, "Your store's dope. I love it. I fucks with it." A couple of them, I remember this kid Evan. He was an industrial design student. It was like his senior year, and he helped build some fixtures for me. And he built me like a gift. It was like a Bape bootleg clock. And then I always gave him discounts because he was a frequent customer. And then now the kid is like the one of the head shoe designers for like Reebok that I keep in touch with.
So it's those relationships, man, coming back to that again.
Yeah, he's super cool. And then but then a few other people started their own vintage endeavors after they saw us because they thought it was doable. And I was like encouraging that. Like I told Kid Collection, yo, you should go next door, like down the street. Down the hall. And then he opened his store, and then we were like this small community. And then like 2 other vintage stores opened up, and then it became this small community. Yeah, it was good.
So it seems like things were going good, but that is not the storefront you have now. You are in a different location. What went into the decision making of leaving that storefront at the arcade, and what made you choose your current spot? And I'll let you say where it is and why you chose it. But yeah, what was that process like? What made you leave the old spot at the arcade to the spot you have now?
Well, prior to this new spot, I was doing everything by myself. I was doing a dolo, all finance and all by me. But I had an idea of opening up a collectible. So the old store was mostly clothes and a few collectibles. And I was like, yo, we're doing okay. I wonder if we could open a new store and get more collectibles and make it a fully comics and vintage toys and collectible shop.
Were you always into those things, comics, toys, vintage collectibles, or was that?
Yeah, that goes with the vintage. I was that's my shit. That's why like all some of my influence come from. Because like I said, I was like such a doing my own thing that I would read comics by myself in my bedroom and just like, get lost or just try to redraw it and hone my skills. It was very self-taught. All I had to do is redraw comics to draw what I do now. I just kept redoing it. I thought that was dope. 90s comics is a very artistic, dope stuff. But I was into that. I was one of my figures I got now that I'll never sell is the Ultraman toy that my dad and my mom gave me when I was a kid. It was so they gave me money that equal to $150, and when you're like 13, you're souped. And I was like, that's fucking tight. So back in the day, there wasn't much of the internet back in like, was it 1996 or whatever, 97. But you could look on it to find different things. So I was like into Godzilla, Kaiju, and Ultraman. And I was like, yo, I have $150. This is random number catalog that sells this shit. So I called this number. I was like, yo, man, I'm trying to buy some stuff. And he's like, I'm into Ultraman. And then I'm like a kid, and this dude, old dude, I could tell he's like, well, I got this. He's like in Atlanta or somewhere in the South. He's like, this is gonna cost you $125, $150. I was like, what the fuck's $150? I was like, oh, it's $150. All right. And he was like, how do I buy that? And the guy was like, you gotta send a check or a money order. And I'm like, yo, Dad, I need to get a money order. He's like, all right, whatever that's for. So you mail it, and then looking back, you're like, this is very scammy. Like you could, I
just keep your money, and then that's it.
I could have legit gave this dude $150. He could never send me that. I could do nothing about it. But for some reason, 2 weeks later, I was waiting. I was like, I hope this comes. It comes. I'm like super souped. And it's one of my prized toys. It's like talking Ultraman 12-inch vinyl figure from like the late 80s. It's worth like money now.
So you were into collectibles for a minute, and the old space, you just didn't have enough space for the clothing, the vintage, and the collectibles?
I thought I could go bigger.
Gotcha.
I wanted to branch off. And then like the homie Zudi from Kid Collection had a similar vision. He wanted to branch off and get bigger. So he went to the mall, and I went to find a different spot, and I called my friend Tony, who is also like a comic book nerd. And I was like, yo, I'm trying to do this second store. Do you want to get down? You just need like to bring in a few bucks. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And he got down. The weird part about that is it's a mad random story. So Tony he needed to bring in some money, like thousands of dollars, to start the second store. But that money was in Florida, straight cash. And we couldn't get it unless we like flew over there. But at that time, I was given a free rental by my buddy who owns a auto body shop for my car being worked on, a brand new 2020 Acura. And I was like, yo, how are we gonna get this money? Because we need to open this store. And then we were like, yeah, we can do the road trip.
So wait, just to make sure I'm understanding this right. So you and your buddy bringing in the comics, we're going to open the new store together.
We needed to buy over like 20 G's worth of comics.
And then, so you had somebody who had 20 G's worth of dope comics.
Yeah, I had some money too, but to get more money, because my buddy had to put his money down to go the thing. The person who had all these comics and collectibles was like, yo, we got to get it. I need straight cash. I was like, oh, fuck, all right.
And they were based in Florida.
Yeah, so we had to get all these comics. So the person who had all the stuff that was going to sell the collection, it was like 30 G's worth of shit.
I was going to say, did you find them online, or how did you
No, I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Oh, Jesus,
old
okay.
school homie. And then we're like, yo, how do we fucking get this straight cash? Because you don't trust sending that shit in the mail. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I got this car, bro. It's free. Because the homies are mad cool. They're like, yo, we'll give you the car a month for free. I was like, oh, thanks, man. I paid, and then, but how we get this, like, fucking, so we drove, so my buddy take this, like, so I'm like, yo, I drove for, like, 6 hours. I got super tired. My buddy takes, like, Adderall, and he drives for, like, 26 hours straight with no brakes. And I'm, like, nervous, because I'm like, yo, how's this guy even awake? What the fuck? So we go there, and I'm like, yo, I was like, yeah, so it was cold. It's, like, February, and I was like, yo, Florida's cool. I've never been in my life. It's very nice here. It's a beach. But we chilled for like 8 hours, got the money, and then flew and drove back. No, he stayed there because he has family, and he flew back. I took the car.
Back all the way back up to Rhode Island.
Yeah. And then we paid off and got the shit, and then we got the store opened up within like a month.
Are you still? Weeks. Is that friend of yours still involved with the store now, or do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's gonna help me out in my future endeavor. That's I told him, like, whether it fails or succeed, we're gonna ride together. So the second store didn't become too successful because I was like spreading myself thin. So I eventually shut down the Bad Taste store downtown. One, it was too much to open 2 stores, and 2, the management of the arcade old building was trying to sell their units and building. So I didn't want to be in a position where if somebody else owned it, they could kick me out. So I
Or
wanted
they
to
could
leave.
jack the rent up.
So I wanted to leave on my own terms because my lease was up.
Oh, okay.
And then if I could make everybody, and at this time, Troop had just opened with already a year.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it might be important to explain where you're at the time second now the new store is now.
So Troop opened like a year before us at the second location, so they had a rep of already being busy, and I was like, yo, if I could close down the first store because the lease is up, I could save like $1,200 a month with the rent and utilities, and allocate that money towards the rent of the new spot. And at that time, I was also looking for an apartment to live because, I wanted to move out of my parents' crib, not because like I had to, because they have like it's like a 3-bedroom. Then they have plenty of rooms, and I visit them regularly, but it's more so I could be closer to the store and also just like have my own spot. So the new location is actually my apartment upstairs and the store's downstairs, and it's triple the times bigger than the old store. So it's a business decision. It's not really so you're not really losing because you're failing the first store. You're just taking a small L to make the bigger store bigger. It's kind of like, I don't know, like Nordstrom closed the store in downtown Providence at their Providence Mall, but they're still booming.
Yeah.
It's just being very well business minded to know that, yo, this store wasn't making that much because now you have 2 stores and people don't know where to go. So you take away one and you force them to go to the more business location, and then you're saving over $1,200 that you could save for an apartment.
What made you choose this current spot that you're in now? Is because the convenience of it's the apartment and the business all in one.
Yeah, to be real with you, one of the main shit is the parking. One of the customers would just DM us and be like, "Yo, downtown parking is terrible. I was driving by, couldn't find parking, so I had to bounce." So like with us being in near Troop, and there's also like a bookstore called Riff Raff, and there's a beauty salon, and it's very very being a dope place that people come to, that and the parking is like free.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to explain Providence geography a little bit for those that are listening that are outside of Providence or outside of Rhode Island. There's downtown Providence, and it is like a downtown like city that you would think of in your head, but with like any city, there's not a lot of parking, or you have to like find street downtown, parking or lots.
And then I realized downtown's just dying. So I'm glad I got out at the time I could. I wish I'd have done it like a few months sooner, but I got out when I should, because downtown in that section is dead. Downtown in general is dead. People think downtown in the city should be booming, but for Providence, it is not. It is not as what you think it is.
I think it's everything surrounding downtown. Like there's a couple of like businesses or bars or stuff that I'll go to, but it's like very specific. Whereas I'm not just like, let's spend a night downtown. It's like, let me go to these specific places, which is interesting because you have this new spot and it's in Olneyville, and Olneyville's outside of downtown Providence, and Olneyville, technically wouldn't have the foot traffic that downtown would get, right? But the area of Olneyville that you're in, it's this rehabbed like mill complex, and it's got apartments, it's got other businesses, it has Troop, which is like a bar / nightclub / restaurant, and it's like almost like this self-contained like kind of like a self-contained main street, just not in a street format. It's just more in like a block.
It's become the cooler part of Providence.
Oh yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah, I compare downtown. So I compare the demographic. So my friend owns Black Sheep, right?
Which is downtown.
Yeah. So the client over there for the busiest night, I'm talking about the busiest night, is the college crowd, the party girls, and the frat dudes.
I was gonna say, because you have URI down there and Johnson and Wales. Actually, not URI. Sorry, John. You have Johnson and Wales down there, I think, right?
Yeah, it's mostly Johnson and Wales. Some PC, but it's very walking distance. So I understand why people go there. So this area, if you ever go into Troop on a busy night, is not a college crowd. It's kind of like, if you know it, and it's like the crowds like creatives and hip kids and like a bunch of like the cooler. Well, cooler is in your opinion or anybody's, but like so-called coolers. I was
gonna say downtown is more tourist and students now, whereas like if you're going to Olneyville and you're going to Troop, you're going because it's there.
No, I mean, yeah, it's the spot if you want to get away from that college crowd. Nothing wrong with that, but that's what you're into. Like if you're older, But what I mean is like it's like a cool hip vibe at Troop. Like there's some parts of it that if you know about it, you're cool, or it's like, its own thing. And then, there's a whole aspect of like being in limited. So like if it's busy, there's a line, and it's cool and hit with graffiti art and streetwear and skateboard decks as chairs and things like that. It's very the whole vibe, and it's just totally different from downtown. And I think our clientele with the clothes and the lifestyle that the store is around here better. And if I need to go to go like a sports bar, watch some sport, I definitely would go downtown, which I still sometimes do. So it's just two different crowds. I mean, there's the cool kids in high school, in college, over there downtown. And then there's like a different type of people over here in this area.
It's different vibe, different audience.
The weird part is like, they sometimes integrate and stuff. But
actually, it's funny, staying on the subject of cool. I forgot. I wish I could remember the guest off the top of my head, but I can't. But it was a notable guest on another podcast. One of the inspirations behind this podcast, Jeff Staples' Business of Hype. And I wish I could remember who the guest was, but they said something that was really poignant to me, which was, they said I never pay attention to what the coolest guy in the room says, because the coolest guy in the room is usually the brokest guy in the room. And the reason why I'm mentioning that quote is because I want to ask you, what goes into what you design, and even just like, hey, like we're gonna have this design screen printed on this kind of hoodie or this kind of shirt versus a different kind of t-shirt or a different kind of hoodie or a different kind of sweatshirt, or even the fact that you're gonna do a sweatshirt or a hat or a hoodie at all. What goes into that, and what goes into like certain vintage pieces you buy versus other pieces you don't buy? Because you were saying how like, people come up to you saying like, hey, you should sell Supreme, and you're like, I don't like Supreme personally, but I'll do it because I know it'll sell. Same with like the collectibles. Is it a lot of what you personally like and your taste and your curation and your thought process and designs, or is it more on the side of like, hey, I got my finger on the pulse of the market, I know what will sell, or is it like a balancing act?
It's a little bit of both. As I grew older from these businesses, I became like a businessman. So you gotta be a businessman also as an artist. You can't just be like an artist nowadays, because you'll be broke.
Unless you got somebody running the business for you.
Yeah, then most of the time they don't really give a shit, because it's not you know what I'm saying. So I now design stuff that I know would sell, and then I design stuff that I know that I personally love. Whether it sells or not is up to the market and the clientele. Some of it doesn't sell. Like some stuff that I think is dope does not sell as well as I thought it would. But I start with a small limited run, and there's just some stuff that I make that's super like touristy, like the Providence shirts that I sell unlimited amounts of. I sell like thousands of those a year, and that keeps the business alive. But it's also like when I design a shirt that I know would sell, I still have to feel that it's kind of cool. Where the stuff that's super deep and meaningful to me, I still do it. I try to balance it. Like there's a balance of like, I gotta feel the passion, and I gotta feel my creative soul passion, but I also know that I gotta still fucking pay the rent and stay alive. So I'll continue to sell stuff that I think is it's cool, but I know it sells. So it's a little bit of both. A lot of young artists, it's not their fault. I was there. They're so passionate about their stuff to make it super big, right? So they would do it even though they don't sell that shit. Like they would spend so much money to make stuff that they know hasn't sold, it isn't selling, and to outside of their group of friends, and they would continue it. It's kind of like, I don't know, like an example would be like a musician. Like Eminem releases a bunch of shit that is just hot on the radio, but then there's some shit that you listen to that's like deep that would never make it on the radio, but that's probably the stuff that he loves. But the guy knows enough that he needs to get some radio play and some tracks to make it booming so that he could do the other shit. Kind of like anything, like, there's definitely shit that brands do just to make it and milk it, and then there's stuff that they rather would have out.
How do you keep your finger on the pulse, so to speak? because I notice, as you're saying, you've gotten older, like your taste change, your design ideas change, things like that, right? But I also noticed that you do have, and I say this as like a high compliment, you have like a pretty young clientele, like, so you always manage to, I guess, stay within like the conversation, so to speak. How do you feel like you do that? Is that a conscious thing, or is it just you being you, or like, do you consciously try to not be, do you try to be involved in that conversation?
Well, as a businessman, like, is this a natural thing? Like, like, if you're with this age of technology and business, you should be on the internet. You should be aware of what's going on, and it just comes naturally. Like, I have so many young friends, nieces and nephews that know what's hot, and I follow enough things on the internet or just whatever's hot to know what's going on, whether it's fashion, music, art, sports cards, whatever's hot in the biz. I just know because I was naturally into it.
So
like, there's not much prying or like searching. It's just like that's what I'm into, and whether I get there sooner than later than most people, I don't know. It's up to.
So bad taste being successful in the fact that it's been persistent, it's still around, it's been around. How did you get it to that point? Because I'm assuming it wasn't overnight. Was it a lot of, quote unquote cold calling? Was it a lot of self promotion? Was it a lot of just posting things online? Like, what did you do to get it to where it is now, where like people know the brand? Like, I know you were doing the Providence Flea, and I know you had like you were selling stuff online, but how did you just get into people's heads that like, hey, we're this brand, we make these things and we exist? 'Cause I think that's like another thing that a lot of new brands or just new businesses have a problem is just promoting themselves and just getting into the conversation in the first place.
Yo, there's one thing that I did was kind of helped build it organically. What are you doing over there?
Eating the food that you got me, which I appreciate.
Oh yeah, the nuggets.
I'm just trying not to eat it while on the mic.
The nuggets and fries are provided by Troop Restaurant next door.
Yeah, Troop is unofficially somewhat sponsoring this podcast, but not really.
I'm trying to get them to sponsor your podcast. There's give you
appreciate it.
They might give us free food.
That would be amazing. Actually, we could do a live episode out of Troop.
Well,
I'm back to the question.
I'm next door, so they do sometimes give me some free food. I eat there enough. I'm next door. I eat there like a few times a week.
I was gonna say, like, you could throw a rock from the window and hit Troop right now. That's how close you are.
Yo, I go there depending if it's busy or not. I could just look outside the window and see if they're busy. There's definitely times when it was busy, and the homies over there would be like, "You should come to Troop." And I was like, "No, man, there's like a line out the door." But being next door, I would they let me cut it. I feel like a jerk, but I live next door, so. But they could walk me. People outside could see me walk out the door and go past them. It's fucked up. It's funny. No, I love it next door. They're back and booming. There was a little quiet during the COVID, limited hours. Now they're opening more hours and more days,
which is awesome.
Yeah, I think we'll do something together during the summer when things open up more. What was the question again?
Oh, so, what did you do to just promote or just get it so that people knew your brand, Bad Taste existed?
The good part is like the most of it was like the clients and the people who buy it themselves. Like, one thing I did when I first opened the store is I took a picture of almost every customer that bought something.
I noticed that even when I bought something, you were taking a picture of me. I'm like, what the hell?
It was an organically done thing. I initially did it to show people on our Instagram and Facebook that people would actually shop here. Like, yo, people actually come here. And I did it so much, and I tagged the people that it got into the algorithms of Instagram that, like, if I took a picture of you and I tag you, you're going to share or like it. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you,
You made the brand story about the customer.
I didn't think of it until it eventually gained traction. I took it so much that now people were coming in, and if I forgot to take a picture of them, they would let me know. They'd be like, "Oh, do I get to be part of the picture?" I was like, "Oh shit, okay." And then sometimes they'd be like, "Oh man, I didn't get to be part of the gram." I was like, "All right, cool." So then, if I took a picture of that person and I tagged them on my algorithm of Instagram, their friends would see and be like, "Oh shit, or they would repost it themselves and think, oh shit. It was good because like whenever somebody takes a picture, they smile, and if you think about it, one of the lasting impressions before they leave the store is them smiling. That would resonate with how they feel whenever they come to Bad Taste. But I did that shit organically, not knowing that people would actually want to be a part of it or take pictures. I did it mostly, to be honest, to show people that people actually come to the store. And then it just snowballed into its own algorithm. I have like over thousands of pictures that I sometimes post up.
What did you do before that? Like before you had the storefront to get Bad Taste into like people's heads, basically.
A lot of well, the good thing being downtown is we were downtown, so like people kept walking, so the foot traffic was there. But no, like we had before the store started, we definitely had a good decent few thousand followers on Instagram because we kept posting online, selling online, buying, trading online, the Providence Flea, everything. It wasn't like here's a store and here's the Instagram. It was like, yo, we built it up so that people could come check it out, and we kept promoting the things. And then it just slowly trickled in. The downtown had events that people kept trickling in. So it was a slow build.
You've done a number of events. What goes into like throwing an event? Is it purely just promotional, or is there like a goal like you're going to sell X amount of pieces? And I've noticed with your events, which I thought was interesting, is that it's not just you. Like you had let other people in the past, and still to this day, either other brands or other stores like use your space and be part of this event. What goes into that? Like what goes into like I want this new brand and this other store to be part of this event I'm throwing. I want this person to do the music. I'm going to offer these things. Like what goes into that? Because I think it's like a great promotional tool because everyone loves to go to a party, right? And so, yeah. But like, how do you put that together, and how do you choose the people and the other brands and businesses that get involved? Like, what's the criteria behind that?
I kind of choose organic, but most of the time I just like to reach out to people that I like and respect. So like, Troop's always gonna be like in Revival is gonna like help us sponsor, and the homie who runs Troop, Chris, is the DJ. He's always trying to DJ, and I'm like, yo, let's get down, and then I'll trade him some free gear. And then local artists like I like, they have a good following, so they're down, and then some few other brands have a good following, and if I like their stuff and it would like relate well or like complement our space.
What were some of those other brands or artists, if you don't mind?
I give a homie Alex Salvani. So you got the Gone Mad homie Madison, she's cool. There's a few others that we did with that was downstairs and a few other spots, and then we got like a big event coming September that we decided to do. We can talk about that after if you want, but that's dope.
Man, I don't mind talking about it now if you want to talk about it.
Well, when you throw an event, I think the best is to provide the person. So one, you want to provide the person you're throwing the event with some value. You don't want to like, come do this for me and you can be part of it. Like Madison, an example, she has her own custom clothing, and so let's just use her just because she's on top of my head.
Before you go into it, do you charge these other brands or other people like booth space or no?
No,
Okay.
I know the value is to get their clientele or more aware from my spot.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's already the worst thing. I mean, not the worst thing, but like a lot of people make the mistake of charging people where like
a pay to play kind of.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, would you rather get the $50 from each vendor to make like $100-$200, or would you rather get the clientele to that? And the first thing is, I don't guarantee any of these people that they're going to make money. I'm just going to guarantee that it'll be a decent turnout, and whatever happens. So Madison, who does custom clothing, she screen prints, she paints and cuts up and distresses clothes. She would come. And but yo, you should set up and bring some people and stuff. And then some of her clients would buy my stuff, and then some of my clients that would come to Bad Taste, like every time she done it, she would make a couple $100, and that's more, a couple $100 for a couple hours is all day. That's a good time. And then, but that's the value I bring to that. And then the vendors are happy, and they would want to do more of it, and forming a good relationship if we ever to do bigger and better things. So I think a lot of people need to reach out, yes, to certain people that they like or would complement their event or space. Um, but I think it has to work in comment. Like you shouldn't really like, like I don't know, what's a random person or a random thing that wouldn't be too, I wouldn't hit up like a lady that sells silverware.
Gotcha. Okay, that's random.
First of all, I don't mind that. I've met some women that who are in the six that flip silverware and they make a killing. But the thing is, I wouldn't really compliment the area. Right. But Madison does the art and dope shit, like does the stuff. So
it's got to fit organically with what.
Yeah. So then there's other vintage vendors that I love, like PVD VTG. He comes in sometimes, and they are outside before, and they made some decent money. Everything has to like. I'm not here just like reaching out to people to try to use them to my benefit, but like hopefully it has to really work for both people to make it really.
Adapt or die. I know, sounds a bit harsh up front, right? But there is a lot of truth in that saying, and the ability to adapt quickly is a major key to success, no matter what business you're in. Longston had to adapt many times throughout his life. When he started his new brand, Bad Taste. When he realized that selling vintage clothing at the Providence Flea was very lucrative. When he picked out his first store location. When he was taking pictures of customers and making their story the Bad Taste brand story. And when he decided to go from 2 stores to 1 single new store in Olneyville, and having that store be a shared workspace and living space. Or when he realized his love of comic books, toys, and collectibles was actually pretty lucrative and decided to integrate that into the Bad Taste story. Or when he decided to throw events that not only showcased his brand, but the brands and creative projects of others as well. So remember, set yourself up to be able to adapt and pivot quickly. You will be setting yourself up for success. Noticed on a number of your social media posts, do you still have the intern, or is the intern going?
Oh, Sophia?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sophia is she is still killing it. Sophia, she was actually only supposed to be doing internship for like 15 hours, but she loves the store and loves what's happening here so much that she volunteers herself to come up and learn more. And I am super proud of her and excited about that. She is this very, very talented. When she reached out, I think she was like 16 and going on her senior year.
Oh, so she reached out to you to do the internship?
Yeah, so every high school or college has some sort of internship that we've done in the past, and they get a credit, and I get the the free help, which is cool, and I get to mentor them. But Sophia's super different because like I've had interns in the past where they just do it for the credit, and they don't put much 100% in, which is cool. They're young. Like I'm not gonna blame a freaking 16-year-old kid for not putting a lot of effort in. He just if he gets out of class for free, that's that's a fun time. I wish I could do that back then. But Sophia was different because she would DM me, and I was like, yo, this super long paragraph. She was like, I want to help be internship with Bad Taste. I love the store, things like that. And I think I saw it, but I didn't see it too much. And then she emailed me, and I was like, oh, this girl's really trying. So I was like, oh. And then I saw it the second time, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't respond, but if you're available, come in. We'll have interview. So she came, spent an hour interview, and she had a lot of energy, enthusiasm, and there was a little bit of me mentally that I could see in her because I was like that, but I had nobody to look up to at that time. Because when you look back in the 90s, there wasn't this Instagram or mentor and type of role thing that you could do. A lot of schools didn't really offer it. And then I saw a meme, and I was like, you should be the person that you wish you had when you were younger. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So she comes in. I let her do the legwork of folding clothes and stuff, and then I try to teach her how to design, or we'll do small things. We'll teach how to bleach. We'll teach how to like screen print. And that's when I called in my favors to my friends who own the screen print shop, and he gave us a tour. She was super happy. We talked about street fashion, stuff that she wasn't too familiar with. I called my friend Joe Perez, who's like a creative director for like he was a former art director for Donda, Kanye's art director, and he has worked recently with Justin Bieber, Nicki Minaj and stuff. And I was like, yo, I have this really cool young student. She needs more experience. I want her to give her all the exposure to all creative. And he was like, okay, have her come in. And we both then met with them, and she got inspired. And then she recently, I told her to apply for everything. Apply for like New York, for college, because she's about to graduate. And then she got a letter back, and she has been accepted to St. John's University, which is like a school in New York, with like a 6-figure scholarship. And I'm super happy and proud of her. And then she also got accepted to URI. But I was like, fuck that. Don't stay local. You need to be in New York to be part of fashion. Like, if that's where it is, then you should go where it is.
If you're trying to do that, you need to go where it is.
So I was talking to her today, actually. I was like, when's your thing? And then she's taking the tour of the St. John's University April 18th. And then we're going to talk about how it goes. But every now and then when she has time off, because she's working and trying to, finish her exams and getting ready to graduate, she comes up every now and then to hang out and do, fun videos and small things. What we're doing in the store in a month, so she's gonna help out do that. So she stays in contact, and I keep in touch with her to help her stay motivated and try to keep her on track. And hopefully she, makes her move to New York, and that's super dope of her to do that.
What made you decide that you needed an intern? Was it there was just so much to do that you couldn't do it all, or?
No. One, I like working with the youth. A few years ago, I taught after-school arts program for the middle school in Woonsocket for pretty much free. I mean, they gave me $60, but that was gas and lunch and supplies. So they asked me that they needed a after-school art program. It wasn't, obviously good paying, but it was 2 hours a couple times a week, and it was very rewarding. I love that part. My nephews always hit me up. They're now in middle school, and they have art classes and asking me for advice and stuff. And it feels good that I'm able to steer them or give them a little bit of advantage over somebody else, so that they could pursue their dreams. So mostly it was like, yo, I like the fact that I could help a little bit for this person to get to where they're going, because that would mean a lot. Because if somebody did that for me when I was a kid, I'd be like, fucking, and I would love that. And then every now and then, there's some stuff that I just don't like to do. I don't like to fold clothes that much or do shipping and stuff like that. So it's just it's always fun to just pick the brains of a young person, see what's hot in the biz, what they like, what kind of music's hot, and it just makes it more. Honestly, it benefits both of us. I get all the knowledge of a young person and the enthusiasm, energy that keeps me going, and then I give them my experience and different things that I know.
What goes into the day-to-day? Because you do a lot. You have the store, you design the clothing, you manufacture basically the clothing. Maybe not from the sense of you're actually cutting and sewing every sweater or t-shirt, but you're designing and making your own clothing. You have the storefront you got to run. Then you also have the events that you do, all the promotion you do for yourself, the online store, and the collectibles, and the vintage. How do you just manage your time? How do you split your time up? What goes into that decision making, just so that all this runs and doesn't fall apart?
Yo, to be real with you, there's definitely times where it's overwhelming and it does fall apart. But within the recent year, I've been more structured. I reached out to my friend Sammy. She works for Madewell. She has a super cool. I was like, yo, you have any advice to get me a structured schedule? So she sends me her schedule. It's all blocked off with color coordinations and hours and stuff like that. So I still wing it for a decent amount, but it is a little bit of structure where from 11 to 12 I do emails and whatever shipping I need to do. I post things on the internet for a certain amount of time. I do my lunches. I talk to new business partners that I'm doing new business with, and so and then I allocate about like 2-3 hours a day to wind down, to watch like random Netflix shows just so I could wind down. So to be real with you, like I do waste about 3-4 hours just on random because I need it because I just have so much on my mind that if I made to watch like some movies and stuff like that, it will wind me down. But to keep it structured, I was winging it for a good amount of years, but within recent year, it's been more positive with the structure. It doesn't have to be very like military, like yo, from this time to this time you should do this, but you should have a list of things you try to allocate or do first in a day. And if you get most of it done, that's cool. If you're not, then you should move it to the next day or whatever. So like right now, the online store is prominent, and the retail store, because it shut down during COVID, I don't plan to reopen it in late April, early May. That takes a back seat to like number 10. And then I think yesterday we met with a venue, the Waterfire place, for our next event. So that takes a priority to get everything settled down.
When you say the Waterfire place, you mean the Waterfire building, not actual like...
Yeah, the Waterfire's building is a spacious 15,000 square foot space that we plan on doing my new event that I thought of a few months ago.
What event is that? So
I've been with collecting and comics and stuff like that. I've been super obsessed with it more, and I've been knowledgeable or obsessed with the current trending of sports cards and comics. To be honest with you, that's like helped me self-sustain some of the business last year. So I've noticed it's been such a lucrative business in other parts of the country, like bigger cities that have like conventions. And I'm a frequent Comic-Con attendee, so I go and I check it out, and it's like, yo, I went and I attended one. It was dope. It was busy. So this goes back into how do you plan an event, right? So I know that bad taste. So my goal is to do a big one, like over 100 vendors, have thousands of people come, and I'm like, yo, I really can't do this by myself. I got to reach out to somebody that has a following as big, and then we'll break off the profit every which way. So I hit up the local homies that have came to the store before. They're super cool. They're called This Is College. So they're like, I don't know, I compare them to like a media company like Barstools, but like for like Rhode Island and New England. So they're expanding. They're getting bigger. So they have like 100K followers, and most of their clientele is college kids. When they do an event, it sells out, all this fun stuff. So I'm like, yo, do you guys want to do this with me? It's booming. And the cool part about them is they know. So this is what I mean when like you build up so much shit that when you ask somebody or people think it's successful, it's because you built it up so that when you go and reach out to somebody, you don't have to convince them that much because your pedigree and your reputation or your portfolio has already spoken for it. They're like, yo, he does his own shit. So I reached out, oh, you want to do this with me? I'm doing this event. It's going to be dope. We'll have thousands of people, things like that. And like, yeah, man, that sounds dope. They're not into sports cards at all, but they know everything about events. I'm like, yo, I will get the creative side going. You guys know how to handle the rest. So they're negotiating to get the spot. We had a meeting, and they're going to do the event promo and everything. And then and they're going to get the sponsorship because they have good relationships with all these liquor companies and my say about like the vendors and different, how it works out.
What goes into you deciding you're going to branch out and do something new? Like this event for you, like you've done events before, but this event on this scale about this particular thing, this subject matter is new for you, right?
Yeah.
What goes into like, I'm going to try this new thing out now? Like what goes into that? Is it just purely out of interest? Is it because you're seeing a trend? Oh, like what makes you go, I'm going to do this new thing now?
I have to like super be in love with it or obsessed with it. And I have to know that it will make money. But that's not really the main part. But I know it has to make money if I'm bringing partners in, because there's no point for somebody else to come in and join me if they're not making money.
They're not going to make a return on the investment.
Yeah, so I have to pitch it to them to a certain point. I'm so passionate about whatever it is I'm trying to do that I think people read into it and be like, yo, it's probably gonna be dope. And so I wanted to always do it. I see what Comic-Con does and other conventions do, and I know what they do good and I know what they do wrong. So I'm gonna take away all the wrong and make it right, but I'm gonna keep the good part so that ours will be the best one, so we could self-sustain and make multiple events a year, and that would be a small side that's lucrative, right? So if I have the store, like last year was the most, what the fuck do you do if shit hits the fan, right? So I was so into design and clothing, but I had some other things too that kept me alive. But what if I have like a bazillion things? So
Right.
I'm hoping this event brings in, let's talk numbers, right? Let's say like it brings in, so there's like 4 of us involved. So let's say it brings in like, 40K profit, because we're gonna charge vendors and have over a couple thousand people. And if I break like 10 to 15K profit, that's straight. We do that 2 times a year. For the first couple of years, that's like 20 extra K, and then I could live off of that. And then the store brings in, a good amount of money, and then online brings in money, and then my newest venture this summer is my team, who I've assembled. We are very hopeful, and I think we're gonna do it. I just find a location is gonna be the shit. But I think we might have found a location. Will be a matcha inspired of avenue, so a matcha cafe. So that's going to be like the other thing I'm going to do.
Okay.
So no, I have to be super into it. And one of the main things about this convention is going to be dope, because we're going to treat the vendors great. We're going to bring in the top vendors in the sports card and comic. I would go to each place, invite them, give them the best option to come to ours, treat them the best, and then they'll come to ours more than other. So then the word would spread. And then, speaking of like networking, right? So I was able to get Roy Thomas as the guest of honor. So Roy Thomas is the former editor-in-chief of Marvel. Now that Stan Lee has passed away, Roy Thomas is the Marvel OG. He's about 80 years old, and he's going to be in more cameos and be a more prominent figure for Marvel. He is the creator of Wolverine, Vision, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Man-Thing, Captain Marvel, I already said Vision, and a few other, Black Knight, and these are all being made into movies, and like the guy's worth hundreds of million, and he has agreed to do our small ass show for a minimal fee. And he won't do any other ones, because I forged a relationship about like 7 years ago with his manager, and I always kept in touch, and so that would bring in a lot of people. And going back to the networking, I met his manager John like 7 years ago when John wasn't the manager, and I went to like a small Comic-Con. It was like John was like selling comics out of like a few boxes. And I was like, "Oh, what's up, man? What's up?" We were nerding out. I was like, "Oh, this is cool comics. Can I buy these stuff?" He's like, "Yeah." So he gave me a deal, and he gave me his card. Oh, cool, man. And then, so that was 7 years ago. Then 3 years ago, I met John at like a flea market. And I was like, "What's up, man? How you been?" I was like, "Oh shit." So we were like, "Yo, I'm selling all my comics. I'm like Roy Thomas's manager now. Would you want to buy and stuff?" So I bought his whole collection. And we were like, "Yo, shit, you're Roy Thomas, man. That's cool, man." Like, it wasn't like, "Yo, whatever." It was just like, "That's fucking dope. I'm happy for you that you got to do that. It's super sick." And then we've always kept in touch through social media. And then a few weeks ago, I was like, I legit was like, "Yo, John, what's up, man?" Like, I didn't ask for any favor. I was like, "Yo, John, how much would it be to book Roy Thomas? Like, is that a thing possible?" And John was like, "To be honest, man, like, I think I could get you other artists or creators first, because I think Roy might be like too busy or too much right now, because it has to be like, because Roy is like, Marvel's guy, so he has to be treated, and it's true, like, I don't know if I could afford this guy, but then John just loves us. He mentioned to Roy when he was in a meeting, and Roy was like, "John, if they're your friends, I'll do it for like next to nothing." So now we got Roy Thomas as and the thing is, like, Comic Con's worth millions and millions of dollars can't get Roy Thomas because he doesn't want to do it sometimes because he doesn't really need the money. But I was like, out of the win, I was like, yo, like, would this a possibility? And then John just had a casual conversation with Roy, and he's like, down. And that goes back to being like, yo, I really didn't think that was going to happen. But I reached out to see what's up, and I asked, and John is super cool. He's going to come on my podcast in like a few weeks, and is going to be more inspiration. He's going to tell you everything about business, how to be in business, in the Marvel, how to be in the entertainment business, how to hustle, how to, be all legit. But like, there's like certain guidelines and things I got to do correct to make it super great for the guest of honor. But that's like the new shit.
I remember you mentioning it, and I think this is a good segue because this event that has such this like high level guest is going to be local to Rhode Island, right? And you were talking about earlier how you told your intern, get out of Rhode Island, go to New York. That's where the fashion is, right? What made you stay in Rhode Island? Because you could have easily have gone to a Boston or a New York. Yeah. Or, especially with all the friends and connections you have, you could have gone somewhere else, and yet you choose to stay here. What keeps you staying here?
To be real with you, I think it was, if I gotta be blunt, honest, I think it has to do with a lot of my parents. They're old school Asian parents, and, as much as I need them because they're super supportive, I think they need a good amount of me too. And that's me just being like super loyal to them, and, like every little small thing that they need help with, like whether it's doctor's appointments to schedule, things like that. And back in the day, back in the early 2000s, there wasn't much opportunity. Like I couldn't really just get up and go to move to New York with like lack of money and things like that. I didn't really, wasn't really mature or responsible back in the early days. No, my friends and family, I wanted to do as much as I can here. One of the opportunities wasn't really there as much as I figured I wanted to be. I know that my family could not afford any college outside of here. I know that they won't even know what to do to apply or help me get to these colleges. And I can't blame them or anything. I'm like, yo, it's super cool. And there's not much I regret. Sure, maybe there's a part of me that wished I had into like a big college in another city, but looking back at it, they've made some sacrifices in their lives to give me a good life. And I'm okay with the decision I did to stick around to make sure that they're good.
So all these different things you've done have brought you levels of success, and now you've got, or I don't say you've got it yet, it's coming, a show with Vice. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah. First of all, I don't consider myself successful yet. I feel like I'm gonna get there.
I would say it's successful. You got a business that's still around and being run. I would say that's a success in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I never looked like that, but I have like a level of success, in my opinion, that if I get to that level, that'll be considered success. But I don't even know if I put my goals on a very super high level where like it's really unobtainable.
Before we get into the Vice thing, what is that goal? Because now I'm curious.
To be real with you, I make money to make myself good, right? Sustain and everything. My ultimate goal is to, I know like money doesn't really, like I technically don't really like money. Like I don't like the physical nature of it. I just know what it brings. And I know people say like, money doesn't bring happiness. But like buying my mom like a crazy house will bring me happiness because it makes her happy. So my goal is to not make money for myself, but to make 2 extra incomes so I can give it to my parents so then they can never work ever again. But I need to get to a certain level to make not just 1 extra income, but like 2 extra income, to take over their thing. And that's my goal. But right now, I know it's successful. It's like I can have money to do whatever I want and some extra money. But like instead of giving my parents a few bucks here and there, I want to give them this whole salary per year. And that's the most realistic goal. But ultimately, I would love the financial freedom to travel around the world whenever I want. And right now, as a small businessman, I still have to budget everything. Even though I am able to live off of it, I still have to budget. But to get there smart where you don't have to budget anything is ridiculously the goal. And I have my eyes set on that and beyond. Like my goals are ridiculous. Like I'm trying to like people like shoot for the stars, get to the moon. Like I'm trying to shoot for like another galaxy and shit. You know what I'm saying? People have like small goals, man. They gotta go like crazy.
All right. So Vice, what's this situation with Vice all about?
Oh, Vice. I'm working on a cool video. Someone, a producer from Vice, reached out to me, and asked if I would be interested in doing a. Initially, it started off as a video project for me to showcase Southeast Asian food and culture throughout New England, mom and pop shops, like short, small, 5-10 minute videos, maybe just like 2 or 3 of them. This has happened in late last year. They reached out, and I'm like, because that's all I do. Other than me designing and creating and business, like I post up videos of me eating, Southeast Asian food and just bullshitting on.
So they cold called you basically. They just reached out and said, "Hey, we've been seeing you making these posts."
Yeah, it was like. So technically, I was doing an event. I forgot somewhere. So one of the Vice producers, she's like follows me, right? But she's also like have bought stuff.
Oh, okay.
So, and like I said, like forging connections, right? Like I don't. So I know she I'd spoken to her randomly, and she's like, yeah, when you're ever in town, like because she follows my food stuff, and like. And I was like, yeah, whenever you're like in the area, you should go to this Thai restaurant. It's dope. Like thinking nothing of it, because I recommend fucking food to everybody.
Yeah.
I remember people, should go to Thai. My favorite restaurant in this the state is Thai Garden. It's the most authentic Laotian Thai restaurant. This old lady since the freaking 1990s have made the same recipe, and does not give a fuck if it's spicy or not, but it's just dope.
So this person from Vice was at Bad Taste, bought some stuff. You suggested a restaurant
we
thing,
were doing like some sort of an event, not
an
Bad
event,
Taste. But they had bought stuff, and I was like, all right, cool. And this is like last year.
Yep.
And then I kept posting videos. People react to it or like the videos, and then she had reached out like, oh, hey, how are you? So I was just curious. I just generally get to know people. I was like, yo, so what do you do? She's like, oh, I work for Munchies and stuff. I was like, oh, well, it's cool. By Vice and stuff? She's like, yeah, I work for Vice and Munchies. And I'm like, oh, it's dope. You should go to this food place, Thai Garden. It's dope if you like it. Oh, word? I was like, general comments. Cause Because, like I ask you what you do and I ask random people. It's just like, like if someone's in my booth and liking my shit, like that's super cool. And I'm just curious of I'm just curious of, people and what they eat and what they do. And so months, and then she ended up out of the blue. She was like, "Hey, we have to pitch a bunch of new shows to our executive producer, and I wanted to come up with an idea across you. Would you be down to be like a host if I was to put together an idea of Southeast Asian food because you know about it in New England?" I was like, "Oh shit, really?" I was legit surprised. Like why wouldn't you be? It's fucking Vice, and she's, but I never asked about anything. I just told her, I was like, oh yeah, of course, In my mind, I was like, oh fuck yeah, I would be, because I'm like, oh shit. I was like, of course I would be, but she was super nice because she treated me as like, would you be interested? I was like, fuck yeah. In my mind, like, but I'm like, yes, I would. And I was like, oh great. She was like, and I was like, all right, cool. Keep me posted. So I sent her a bunch of information that I knew, and then she was like, I can't promise anything. I just got to pitch it. Whether it's green light or not, it's not up to me. I gotta still get the okay. And I was like, yeah, it's cool, whatever. And then I'm like super nervous. Like a week goes by, I don't really hear anything, and then a week and a half, I'm like, whatever. I guess it doesn't work out, which is cool. Like I never expected anything. And then she like DMs me. She was like, dude, it's been green lighted. You're gonna have your own thing. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, can you FaceTime me? Here's my number. And then she FaceTimed me. Super sweet, super nice. And I was like, yeah. And then we have half an hour conversation. I was like souped. I hung up the phone after, and I was excited to my friend. And then we've been in contact since late December, bouncing ideas back and forth. And then she hits me up and was like, it's kind of changed. Would you still be down? instead of making it like short 5-minute episodes, we want to do a short documentary on the Southeast Asian culture, food in England. And we have you could, if you can you join us in a meeting with the supervising producer, all three of us, and we could talk about it. I was like, cool, yeah. So I wrote down a bunch of notes, right? I spent like a day or two to get what I need to get across from the questions and things like that, be prepared. And then, so the idea that it landed on was to me to be like Anthony Bourdain, a Danish character. Not to say that I'm him, but that's going to be the style.
Kind of like the storytelling style of the show.
So I would host, but I would showcase a little bit of my family's immigrant culture and background to other local Southeast Asian restaurants and where the certain places to eat, talk about the culture. The food's the background, the people in the story of how it is to be immigrant around here, and correlating with food would be the premise of it. And I love it. I've always wanted, and I've always have promoted my culture. I think it's, beautiful. But to have it on a vice level would be fucking amazing. And the fact that I get to be the storytelling, and I get to be like the person delivering it and hoping to do the culture proud, is like an immense opportunity and honor to do. And I get to eat on TV, and I get to talk about people, and I get to be on a Vice and Munchies dog. Is dope.
Pretty crazy journey from younger you in art class to early 20s you running your first like streetwear brand and store, to current you running the new brand, the new store, collectibles, events, and now in the near future this Vice show, right? If there was like a new version of you coming up now, like there's a kid out there, he's 21, he's got some designs in his head,
right,
maybe some files on his computer, knowing what you know now, all the stuff you've been through, and he comes into bad taste, sees what you do, and he's like, I want to be like you. Like, what would just be some of the base level advice that you would give him that you weren't able to give, or somebody else wasn't able to give you when you were in your early 20s? Like, what would be, if you just sat him down, had a beer with him, like, you need to do, I've learned from experience, you need to do this, this, and this.
I mean, the cliche advice would be like, you should be yourself and do what you want to do, whatever. But the realistic advice that I would give any fucking kid that wants to do their own thing is to stop fucking dicking around and doing shit that you think is the other person to impress the other person. Or like, I don't know, like, I think some kids are on the level. Like, I've seen some kids locally have made good designs and product, and they've sold their shit. But the fucking next day, they're buying like a pair of Jordans that is like killing their growth, right? Because they fucking just digged into their profit because they need to impress somebody. First of all, so I was that kid, right? So I would buy these expensive clothes when I was fucking in my early 20s for no fucking reason but to impress fucking the peers and girls.
So goes back to that quote from that guest on Jeff Stable's podcast: the coolest guy in the room is usually the brokest guy in the room.
It's true. But nowadays, so if I would have kept it true, so I became like, this hype beast person or whatever you want to call it, in my early 20s, mid 20s. But when I was like in high school or middle school, the teachers would love me because I was myself. I was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, right? And then I gradually fell back into becoming the t-shirt and jeans regular dude that kept it real and authentic, right? And then now people are like, yo, I love your style. I get that a lot. It was weird. Not to like toot my own horn, but people are like, yo, you should style me or whatever. But all I fucking do is wear t-shirt and jeans on a daily basis. So what I'm trying to say is, if you just kept it real to yourself and stop trying to impress people, and if you have some designs, go hard at it, work. And I mean, like, be obsessed. Like, an example is like, I'm talking about, I get obsessed. So people are always like, yo, man, I want to do what you do. But I don't know if it's possible because it's so, like, I get so obsessive with shit to the point of like, it's not even healthy. But like, you should still be obsessed. Like, if I don't know something, I legit will not sleep for 36 hours until I figure it out and know the basis of everything. Like I wanted to do photography for a short amount of time, and I spent like 4 days in a row Googling and YouTubing, and I know everything I need to know personally from photography. So now when I pick up a camera, I know enough where I shoot it. Or when I have to know about Photoshop, there's no, like, I'm not going to sign up for a class right now to learn it. I'll just go on YouTube and Google, and for like it's that obsessiveness. It's ideal comic books and sports cards. When I was getting into heavy, I spent like 6 hours a day, 5 hours on that, allocating towards that. Like, you have to be super focused and into it. You can't be like, yo man, I want to like be like you, but only like, a little bit, but only the fun part. Because there's going to be the fun part of like, yo man, I get to go to these events and I eat good food and Vice hits me up and I get the money and these collabos. But there's like legit, like sometimes I'll legit lay here for like 6 hours straight thinking of the next, how to make this collab or this project or this event or this business idea work. And I'll, listen to countless inspiration, and I'll read mad books and shit, and I'll figure out how to do things. It's a very lifestyle that you kind of have to, sunk yourself into, and forget all that noise. I've turned down definitely a lot of parties and hanging out and shit. That's very hard to do when you're fucking in your 20s too, to turn down social activities.
Right.
And that's what's killing most of these kids, because when you go to these, you get easily influenced by other projects that you're steered away, whether it's another person telling you, yo, it's whack or whatever. You're young, you're impressionable, you're like, oh, I guess it is whack. Or maybe a girl's like, no, you should do this. Like, I had relationships in my 20s when a girl, no offense to her anymore, she's but she was like, oh, your stuff is okay, She just said that to me. She's like, it's okay, like, anyone can do it. And then you're like, oh, that sucks, that kind of stings, right? Then you're like, can anybody fucking do this? Like, it sucks. So then you kind of get deterred.
But if everybody could do it, then everybody would do it, so.
Yeah, the thing is, so there's going to be people, so one, you have to focus, stay true to your vision, don't let nobody deter it. Two, there's going to be a lot of fucking people hating, whether it's blatantly in your face or subliminally try to deter you from it. So you have to get that away. I still get trolls on the internet and DMs that are fucking ridiculous, but I ignore it because if you don't pay attention to it, it doesn't exist. And then three, you should plan for this is my thing. I recently heard of this term, your future self. A lot of people focus on their current self, but they do stuff that their future self will get mad at them. So you should do things that your future self in 6 months would like. And so number three is like patience. Like, people should not expect to be super crazy and balling when they're in their mid-20s, and work yourself up. Like, people say, oh, successful, it's massive, but I was at it for like a decade, bro. You know what I'm saying? No,
it wasn't overnight.
It's a decade.
Well, we're at the end, and
how long was that?
We've been going for about 2 hours and 20 minutes. We're on the 2 hour 20-minute mark.
How average is your thing?
Well, hold on, we're still not done yet. We're on the last question.
Oh,
I'm gonna keep that in too because I thought that was good. But it's not even really a question. It's just more of just a tradition I've done on the show. Where any last pieces of advice you want to give, any events or things you want to promote that you haven't already, things people should check out, whatever you want to promote or say before we sign off, go for it.
Yo, I don't know. So the next business venture is our matcha cafe. We're gonna bring the first matcha cafe to Providence. A lot of coffee shops have like 1 or 2 matcha selections, but I think bringing a matcha only cafe.
You guys are gonna be the first?
Is there another one? I don't think there's another one.
I'm just trying to think of like, there is like some of the tea spots on Thayer Street, but I don't know if they're strictly matcha.
No one's strictly matcha.
Okay,
everybody has.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Everybody has tea. So I mean, up in like Cali, whatever, there's like places that's called matcha. Like blatantly, their shit's called.
And that's all they
matcha.
do.
But like, I think a lot of people, I'm not hating on it, but like, understandable. Like, coffee is very like New England, right? It's like a New England shit.
coffee's very Providence. I mean, I have a shameless self-promotion. I have a thing called Double Shot Sunday, which is coffee and music because of that.
So we're gonna, I think we're gonna do some sandwiches and pastries and shit, but mainly is bringing that. But I'm gonna bring that vibe that you would get when you walk into a bad taste store, to that vibe. But now you're getting served food and beverages instead of clothes. So people love the Boy Bad Taste vibe and the look and feel of it. If I brought that vibe into a matcha spot, I think, or a cafe type of venue that we are hoping to do in downtown Providence, that I'm only saying it because the more I say it, the more it's going to happen. But we've already looked at a space or two. It's just a matter of time. We're hoping for a summer. If it's a late fall or early fall, that's fine. But it's a very goal that I had pitched to my friend, two of them, and they're both down. And we're going to get it going as soon as possible. But that's... my advice is you should do a lot of shit so that your taste palette is expanded, but also you don't get bored. I get bored a lot. So to have a lot of different things going on would, one, help you out financially, if you can, but you should start small. Two is just get some good, like stay loyal to the relationships that you have, whether it benefits you or not. Don't just be in with something just because it doesn't benefit you. Like if you have the opportunity to help somebody else, you should do that, and you should hope or not expect anything in return. And three, you should have a lot going on so that you don't get bored and stagnant. And that sometimes is the failure to most relationships and business relationships, is you get stagnant on certain things. So if you have I'm hoping to get 4 or 5 different business ventures up and running by the end of the year, and that it could allocate most of my mind. And if one hits the fan, then you're still good.
Well, with that, what a long, strange trip it's been for you, Long, and what a long, strange podcast it's been for the both of us. But it's been amazing. So Long, thank you for doing this episode, my friend.
Thank you. This is toy.
Appreciate it, and
this is a good time.
Until next time.
I didn't know it was going to be a good time.
And that's it for this episode of the Creative Capital Show. Thank you for listening, and a special thanks goes to my guest, Longston of Bad Taste. The Creative Capital Show is hosted, recorded, edited, mixed, and produced by me, Jason Sylvia. You can listen to the Creative Capital Show over at our website, creativecapitalshow.com. We're also available on Anchor FM, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast hosting platforms. If you like the show, please subscribe. Helps the show out a lot. And be sure to follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I hope you enjoyed the show, and until next time, keep on creating.